Last night's national championship taught us something crucial about our own conference. Really crucial. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from ESPN Central Texas. Thank you for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. And today, more than most, I feel more than, you know what? That's exactly what I'm going to start. Can I start there? I feel better today about the Big 12 than I maybe have ever. Now, it's not because Texas and Oklahoma are gone. It's not. I'm not going to come in and make the case the Big 12 is overall better because those two. Now we have a much better shot at winning national championships. We're much bigger of a. We have a much better angle at becoming a power conference. I'm not going to say that, but I am going to say with the creation of the 12-team playoff and what we've seen, the trends we've seen from this conference in the college football playoff era, the Big 12 can compete for national championships. And there's somebody out there going, "Oh, that's stupid. That's silly." You yourself. Myself, I said a couple of days ago that I think there are about 12 teams in college football that make up the elite, and they're the only ones that can win it all. But what we have seen the last few years is the Big 12 can at least compete for national championships, more so than the ACC even, more so than the dead Pac-12, and, well, because they don't exist anymore, and right on par with some Big 10 teams. What's the best conference in college football? 3, 2, 1. We all say it together. It's the SEC. We can't really argue that. Over the course of the last 15 years, they are the conference that has won national championships. That is the league to beat, period. I can't argue that. The SEC is the best. The Big 12 has never claimed to be the best. Are we better than the SEC in some categories? I think so. But the SEC is number one. Guess what we didn't see in this year's national championship game? An SEC team. That's right. We saw 2 Big 10 teams, or one team for the Pac-12, another team for the Big 10. And what did that show me, especially with Washington being there? We can be there too. I want to take you back, as we look at a 12-team playoff, what that's going to do here, I want to take you back to TCU in 2014, to Baylor in 2014. I want to take you back to some high-flying, fun West Virginia teams or Oklahoma State teams, to a Utah squad that, given the right matchups in a 12-team playoff, could have vied for a national championship. Or in the future, an Arizona team that with a 12-team playoff could certainly get the right matchup and make a deep run. Now, runs are going to exist, the good kind, in the college football playoff era. I after watching last night, I am confident the Big 12 can compete at the top of college football. Last year, TCU went and beat a Michigan team that won the national championship this season. I saw a lot of TCU people tweeting out there, "Oh, TCU would blow out Washington or beat Washington and Michigan this year. TCU would have won a national championship with Max Duggan." I don't know if that's exactly correct. I can't make that case today, but I can say TCU winning a college football playoff game, going to the national championship, and then Washington doing the same thing this year proves that the Big 12 is not in a bad spot. Washington reminds me a lot of a Big 12 team. Honestly, can I be frank with you here? Clemson reminds me a lot of a Big 12 team. And I'm not going to turn this into an expansion conversation, but I am going to turn it into, look where these programs were 15 years ago. From 2000 to 2015, Washington sucked. They went 0-12 at one point. A couple of years ago, they went 4-8 before bringing in Kalen DeBoer. How about Clemson? Between winning a national championship with I think it was Danny Ford wins a national championship there, and then you fast forward to the Dabo Swinney era, and it takes Dabo Swinney a while to get them to national championship caliber. Before that, nobody really cared about Clemson. The Big 12's got a lot of Clemsons. The Big 12's got a lot of Washingtons. BYU won a national championship. Colorado won a national championship. Yeah, so we look at the Washington team and say, yeah, they won a championship in the 90s. Clemson had won a championship in the 90s, and then they were pretty much dormant and now have refound this historic brand of football and are winning at a top level. Washington's doing that. Clemson is doing that. And not only are they doing it, but they're doing it with maybe a bad season thrown in there too. Washington going 4-8. That's proof. TCU just did it with a first-year head coach. That is proof to me that when we have a conversation about the Big Ten, the SEC, and everybody else, it's not really everybody else. Washington, if they were representing the Pac-12, they went to a national championship game, and guess what? They played a Pac-12 schedule. They were a Pac-12 team. They didn't recruit this year's team with the Big 12 or with the Big Ten logo on their jersey. They were, in essence, a Pac-12 team, and the Big 12 It's right up there with the Pac-12. I mean, Utah, this Utah team that's in the Big 12 now that's won the Pac-12 the last 2 years. Utah at its peak has been college football national championship or national title competitive at the very least. That says a lot. Because as we see a Washington team that goes toe-to-toe with Michigan for some portion of this game, Michigan led. You could say they dominated in the very end. They did. I mean, they won it going away. But it looked like for a spell, Michigan gave Washington a ton of chances to get back into the ball game. And a Washington team that reminded me a lot of what the Big 12 gives you. TCU went to the national championship. Kansas State's a team that's played at the top of this league. Iowa State's been good. You just can't name me a Big 12 team where I could go to the SEC and I could tell you, look, Mississippi State will probably never go to the college football playoff. Like in my lifetime, I don't see Mississippi State going to the Elite Eight, if that's what we're going to call it. However, I could see Cincinnati doing that because they just did it. And they competed with Alabama at the very least. I could see Iowa State doing that. I mean, they won 10 games a couple of years ago, right? 10, something like that. I could see Baylor doing that. They won a Sugar Bowl, and they went 3-9. I could certainly see Texas Tech doing that the way they're recruiting with Joey McGuire, and recruiting's a massive part of this. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm unpacking? I can see BYU doing it. They had Zach Wilson, a top 5 draft pick, a guy who's at the top of college football for a season, and they won double-digit games. I don't like Mississippi State in the good years. You don't see a whole lot of that. I don't know if they're going to the 12-team playoff. There are a couple of those brands in the SEC where you say, I don't know if we'll ever see Arkansas or Vanderbilt, but a lot of these Big 12 teams over the last, listen, this is maybe the entire thesis with why I think what we've seen over the course of the college football playoffs 4-team tenure that the Big 12 can compete with the 12 team in a very strong, real way. What I'm saying here, the thesis here, every team in the Big 12 has at least been close. Could make a case over the last decade, over the length of the 4-team playoff, that they would have gotten in to a 12-team format. And the ones who may not be able to make that case, maybe Arizona State doesn't have a good year, they're on at least an upward trajectory. It might not truly apply to every team in this conference, but I think it might just. And not only can the Big 12 get there with 3 teams, you heard that case yesterday, maybe 4. I think the Big 12 can win there. You saw it with TCU, and you saw it with the Washington team, who reminds me a lot of a Big 12 team. They just played in the Pac-12, which I think was worse than the Big 12. And then a Michigan team that's not an SEC team. They're a Big 10 team. So we've learned the SEC isn't the end-all, be-all king every year. We've learned that teams from the smaller conferences, a la a Washington in the Pac-12, a TCU in the Big 12, a Cincinnati even, can get to the Final Four, can be in the college football playoff and make some noise. And we've learned that we're expanding to 12 teams. Nothing's going to change that. So with the format being larger, the Big 12 having more opportunities, I walked away from last night's game thinking, now we get a shot. Because used to, we got left out. What happens in 2014 if there's a 12-team playoff? What happens with Baylor and TCU that year? What happens if there's a playoff and Oklahoma State gets in with Brandon Weeden at quarterback? What happens then? Some of these Geno Smith quarterbacked West Virginia teams. What happens? 2017 UCF. I don't know. What if Cincinnati gets the right matchup? What if Utah gets the right matchup? That's a real thing that we don't have to ask that question for anymore. We're going to get to see it. If that doesn't make you excited about the future of this league, you're not a fan of the Big 12. You might be in that 10% of Utah fans that just stink. The rest of you are cool, though. Coming up, how about this? There is very little wrong with bowl season. In my mind, there's very little wrong with bowl season and its structure. This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Jace Medical. Right now, it is time to get your Jace case. I know we keep things light on this show, but I want to bring up not a heavy topic necessarily, but one that can help you or a loved one and even maybe save your life. I know we're coming here for sports, but according to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in decades. This is scary. I can't imagine losing or having a significant other who is sick and not having like a supply chain issue being the reason I can't get the medicine. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinuses, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit JaceMedical.com, complete your physician encounter. It'll be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. Save money. It's never been more important to be prepared than it is right now. Go to JaceMedical.com. Use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. JaceMedical.com. Use code LOCKEDON. I don't think there is anything monumental wrong about the current bowl structure, and I'm going to use the Big 12 as an example. That's not clickbait. What I do think is clickbait are the majority SEC fans, majority Big Ten fans that are crying about the way that bowl games are played. Yeah, well, everybody opts out. Nobody takes it seriously. Nobody cares. The people that are saying that are the ones who didn't try. And I get why there are some schools that are in that boat, like at A&M, sure, whatever, your players aren't going to play. And I guess their fans are upset with that. But you have a lot of money and a lot of prowess. I mean, you claim to have a lot of sway in college football, and I'm supposed to bow to you because your players don't want to play? Because guess what, buddy? In the current bowl format, the Big 12 was almost unaffected. I watched every Big 12 bowl game this year, from Texas Tech dominating Cal to Kansas in a wild penalty-ridden shootout beating UNLV to Oklahoma State controlling Texas A&M and then taking the gas off out of pity late in the game. West Virginia smacking North Carolina, Arizona over Oklahoma, and the list goes on. And guess what every one of those games has in common? The Big 12 did not have a lot of bowl opt-outs. We didn't give up. We didn't say, you know what, these bowls don't matter. We used the bowl games for what they're meant for and actually played them. And I don't think that we have to alter the structure of bowls because the big bad SEC teams don't want to be here. Guess what? If you didn't make the college football playoff, you have a bowl game to lean on to be able to practice and give your team more reps, your young guys more reps going into next season. And if it's not your young guys, if it's not your team for next season, if it's an Ollie Gordon type that you don't know if he's going to be back until a couple days before the game, at least that guy, who could be the future of your program, gets more reps. There are multiple facets to which bowl games have worked in college football for decades. This has been the formula, and it's never been an issue. And I know things are different now with the transfer portal and NIL, but it's not like every team and every conference is having this issue. Do we have to change the bowl structure because the SEC has players opting out and players entering the transfer portal? This is a problem for the haves in college football. Listen to this, please. When someone at the cooler says, "Man, there is just a big problem with these bowl games. You got a lot of people." Man, I'm a Texas fan, so I've been watching a lot of these bowl games. There's just a big problem out there. What I want you to say is the problem is from the haves. It's the teams with the most money. It's the teams with the most prowess. It's the Georgias and the Florida States who didn't make the college football playoff who think their season is over. It's not. If you treat the game the right way, if you're a traditionalist in college football, you're going to love the Big 12 because here we don't really give the excuse of, our guy could get hurt. He's got a pretty good draft stock. Or, we had 30 guys enter the transfer portal, so we're going to sit this one out. We probably won't win it. Kansas State went out. Kansas State got ravaged is a word. I don't know if I can use it. They lost a lot of guys to the transfer portal. It was mostly somewhat positive attrition. That's the way I know I'm tiptoeing around Kansas State and their transfer portal situation that I'm still monitoring. But they went out and they won. They didn't make an excuse. They just won. And guess what? The teams that lost, like an Iowa State who lost to Memphis or a UCF who lost to Georgia Tech, their coaches didn't come to the podium and be like, it's the NIL, it's transfer portal. We lost all our guys. We didn't really want to play today. No, that's the rhetoric you get from the haves, the elite teams in college football. The have-nots, the teams that are categorized as blue collar, like those in the Big 12, still take bowl games seriously. I don't have a problem. I watched more bowl games this year than I have in probably the last 5 seasons. I really got glued to it. And I've experienced it. I've been to a Sugar Bowl between Baylor and Georgia in 2019 where like 35 people showed up. The crowd was terrible. And I thought, we got to fix it. We got to change something. There has to be something that we can do to fix bowl games. And now, after watching, I glued to this year's bowl schedule for Big 12 teams, I couldn't help but think, there's not a problem with the teams that actually, like, there are a lot of these teams that are taking bowl games seriously. The true issue is with the haves, the teams that think they're too good for bowl games. I'm not asking your starting quarterback to go out and tear his ACL. I'm not asking your star running back to end his draft stock or his draft chances, whatever. But I am saying, if we stop just looking at the SEC and the Big Ten, if we stop just looking at the top 10 teams outside looking into the college football playoff, even looking at Missouri, who took its bowl game seriously. Like, look, surely we had a couple opt-outs. Sure, we had a couple guys who entered the transfer portal. We're still going to play. That's a large portion of college football. So while the elitists, while those who are screaming to change the game hate bowls and think they're terrible for college football, and maybe you listen to this segment and you think, that's stupid. I think bowl games don't matter. Whatever, man. I watched enough this year. I watched enough Big 12 bowl games to go, you know what? I don't think there's that big of an issue. We're making something out of nothing because the SEC and the Big Ten aren't happy, because their players are leaving, and because they're making excuses for why they're losing. Do you notice that? You notice when Big 12 teams lose, when Big 12 teams lose, we just lose. It was never opt-outs. No, we didn't really want to be here. No, it was a Pop-Tarts Bowl. No, we just lose. But when the SEC loses, though, I promise, it still just means more. You know, we just had guys who didn't want to play. Like, bowl games don't even matter. We should just change the way they do bowl games. No. They matter for teams that actually care about the real, pure parts of college football. The parts of college football that I love. You know? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you think we should kill all the bowl games, but I don't see it. I don't see it. Coming up, hey, I really like the Big 12. Can I tell you about it for a second? This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is where I go to win or lose money. Now, I can't tell you that I win money every time at FanDuel, right? That'd be disingenuous. It's not like I hit every bet, but man, it's fun to do. Somebody goes to the movies for $25 for, like a ticket and popcorn and a drink, and that might be a steal for $25. What if I took that $25? I just put it on Washington's money line. Well, that's what I did. Now I lost it, but I had fun. It was like going to the movies. I spent $25 to watch a great football game with some vested interest thanks to FanDuel. And right now, any new customer gets $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Live same game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. FanDuel.com/locked on to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL.